The fluorescent lights of Chicago O'Hare International Airport, Terminal 3, Concourse C, buzzed like a hive of mechanical bees at 6:47 a.m. on a crisp Tuesday in early autumn. The smell of overbrewed Starbucks coffee mingled with the salty tang of fresh pretzels from Auntie Anne's, and the faint, pervasive odor of jet fuel seeping in from the tarmac. Departure boards flickered incessantly with updates. Flight 217 to Washington Dulles, on time at Gate C-17. Delays for flights to New York JFK due to morning fog. Cancellations to Miami amid hurricane warnings. Business travelers in crisp suits clutched laptops and oversized coffee cups like lifelines against the chaos. Families wrestled with strollers overloaded with diaper bags and stuffed animals. Toddlers screaming in protest at the early hour. A janitor in a fluorescent vest pushed a mop across the polished tile floor in slow, hypnotic circles near the shoeshine stand, humming an old blues tune under his breath. At the heart of this orchestrated frenzy stood Dr. Elena Marie Thompson, 48 years old, a retired U.S. Army colonel and current senior cyber threat analyst for the National Security Agency, NSA. She moved through the terminal with the precision and poise of a woman who had commanded forward operating bases in the dusty heat of Kandahar and briefed four-star generals under the crackle of incoming fire. Her navy Brioni suit was pressed to razor sharpness, hugging her athletic frame without a single wrinkle. A bronze star with valor and purple heart pin gleamed proudly on her lapel, right above her father's Vietnam Combat Infantryman badge, a small silver talisman of familial duty and sacrifice that caught the harsh overhead lights like a beacon. Her Toomey leather satchel, secured to her left wrist with a discreet titanium security chain, contained classified NSA intelligence dossiers, encrypted satellite intercepts from adversarial networks, zero-day exploit code vulnerabilities in foreign infrastructure, and a meticulously prepared 42-page briefing packet titled Operation Iron Veil Emerging PRC. Cyber Sabotage Threats to U.S. Critical Infrastructure. The Secretary of Defense and the Director of National Intelligence awaited her presentation at 1300 hours in the Pentagon's Secure Compartmented Information Facility, SCIF. One minor delay, one potential breach, and a sophisticated cyber attack could cripple the eastern seaboard's power grid, plunging millions into darkness and chaos. Elena had arrived at the airport at precisely 4:15 a.m., adhering strictly to her 3-hour early protocol for top-secret sensitive compartmented information, TSSCI travelers. In the quiet seclusion of the United Club Lounge, she'd reviewed redacted signals intelligence, SIGINT summaries on her NSA-issued hardened tablet, sipping black coffee from a plain paper cup to avoid drawing attention. Her son, Midshipman Jamal Thompson, a sophomore at the U.S. Naval Academy in Annapolis, had texted her at 5:03 a.m. "Mom, go crush that briefing." "You've got this! Love you, Jay." She'd smiled faintly, her dark eyes softening for a moment, and replied with a single eagle emoji before locking her phone and refocusing on the task at hand. 25 years in military intelligence had forged her into an unbreakable force, leading ops that dismantled insurgent networks in Iraq, decoding encrypted communications that thwarted bombings in Afghanistan, and presenting analyses that shifted U.S. foreign policy. Today's briefing was no different. Her insights could prevent a digital Pearl Harbor. Across the bustling checkpoint at TSA Pre-Check Lane 4, Lead Transportation Security Officer Bradley Harlan, 41 years old, white, standing at 6'2" and weighing 240 pounds, began his shift with the same perpetual scowl he'd worn for the past 8 years. His TSA badge, polished to a mirror-like shine, hung from his chest like a medal of petty tyranny over his ill-fitting uniform shirt. Bradley's personnel file was a bureaucratic graveyard stuffed with 52 formal complaints from passengers. "Targeted my hijab for suspicious bulk," from Aisha Khan in 2019. "Made me remove my prosthetic leg in public view," from Sergeant Marcus Rivera in 2021. "Called my service dog a terrorist prop," from Dr. Lila Patel in 2022. All of them had been buried deep in the system, investigated with cursory reviews and ultimately dismissed as unsubstantiated or procedural. Bradley had washed out of the Chicago Police Academy not once, but twice. First for failing the psychological evaluation that flagged his anger management issues, second for conduct unbecoming after a heated altercation with an instructor. A community college dropout with a string of failed jobs in private security, he lived alone in a cramped one-bedroom apartment in Des Plaines, where a Confederate flag blanket draped over his couch, which he stubbornly defended as heritage, not hate. He mocked the mandatory diversity training sessions as liberal indoctrination bullshit, rolling his eyes through PowerPoint slides on implicit bias. His body camera? It had malfunctioned an astonishing 38 times during screenings involving minorities, always at the most convenient moments. This morning, Bradley scanned the first-class boarding line with the predatory gaze of a hawk circling prey. And then he spotted her, Elena Thompson, a black woman, impeccably dressed, holding a first-class ticket with NSA credentials. To Bradley, it was like waving a red flag. Jackpot, he thought, his lips curling into a sneer. Time to remind her where she belongs. Gate C-17 boarding area was a microcosm of airport life. A young couple arguing in hushed tones about forgotten passports, an elderly gentleman requesting wheelchair assistance with polite insistence, children pressing their noses against the massive floor-to-ceiling windows to watch planes taxi on the runway below. Gate agent Lisa Chen, 29, Taiwanese-American with a warm smile and efficient manner, scanned Elena's boarding pass with a quick beep. "Welcome aboard, Dr. Thompson. First class, aisle 2A. Safe travels to D.C." The green light flashed approval, but Bradley was already striding over, his heavy boots thudding against the tile like impending judgment. His clipboard was raised like a shield, his badge flashing under the lights. "Hold it right there," he barked, his voice laced with false authority and oily courtesy. Lisa froze mid-motion, her scanner hovering. "Sir, the scan was clean. Everything checks out." "I wasn't talking to you." "Sweetheart!" Bradley snapped, his eyes never leaving Elena. Elena turned slowly, her military-honed calm etched into every line of her face. She had faced worse, interrogations in war zones, dismissive generals in boardrooms. But this was the familiar sting of everyday American prejudice. "Ma'am, I need to verify these documents," he said, extending his hand expectantly. Lisa hesitated, her dark eyes darting between Bradley's aggressive stance and Elena's patient expression. The morning boarding process ground to a halt, tension thickening like storm clouds gathering over Lake Michigan, visible through the terminal's glass walls. "Is there a problem, officer?" Elena asked, her voice steady as a sniper's breath, despite recognizing the all-too-familiar pattern of racial profiling. Bradley snatched the boarding pass and NSA travel authorization from her fingers with deliberate roughness. His thick, sweaty fingers left greasy smudges across the official NSA seals and clearance codes. He examined them with exaggerated suspicion, holding them up to the light as if they were counterfeit bills. "These look fishy. Government travel, huh?" He snorted dismissively, waving the papers like worthless trash. "Right, and I'm the President of the United States. You probably printed these at a FedEx this morning." The insult landed like a physical blow, but Elena's composure remained unshaken. Her father had endured similar degradation during his Vietnam service, black soldiers fighting for a country that spat on them upon return. Military bearing ran deep in her bloodline, stronger than any hatred Bradley could muster. "Those documents are legitimate, sir," she replied, maintaining professional courtesy despite the humiliation burning in her chest. "I'm traveling on official NSA business for a classified briefing with the Secretary of Defense." "NSA business?" Bradley's laughter boomed across Gate C-17, drawing uncomfortable stares from nearby passengers. "Lady, you can't even afford real jewelry. Look at this cheap costume crap." He reached out and flicked her bronze star pin with his dirty fingernail, sending it spinning on her lapel like a cheap toy. The disrespect toward her hard-earned medals ignited a fury in Elena's chest, but years of breaking barriers in male-dominated environments had taught her emotional control. She breathed deeply, centering herself like a meditation master amid battlefield chaos. Passengers began forming a loose semicircle around the confrontation. Smartphones emerged from pockets and purses like digital weapons ready to capture the unfolding drama. The morning rush transformed into an impromptu arena where dignity battled prejudice under the harsh, unforgiving fluorescent lighting. "Sir, I need to board my flight in 18 minutes, Elena said, glancing at her watch. Departure was approaching rapidly, and her briefing could not be delayed. The secretary awaited intelligence that could prevent cyber incursions in the Asia-Pacific region. "You're not boarding anything until I'm satisfied these documents are real," Bradley retorted, keying his radio with theatrical authority. He spoke loudly enough for the growing crowd to hear every word. "Security to Gate C-17, suspicious passenger with questionable documentation and possible terrorist connections." The radio crackled to life with static and urgency. "Copy that, Lead Harlan. Backup units en route. ETA 2 minutes. Elena's military training screamed internal warnings. Escalation without justification, abuse of authority, racial profiling disguised as legitimate security protocol. Speaking out could jeopardize her classified mission, but silence felt like surrender. A well-dressed businessman in a $3,000 charcoal suit stepped forward cautiously. "Excuse me, officer, but this seems unnecessary. The lady's documents look completely official to my eyes." Bradley whirled on the man with venomous fury, his face reddening like a boiling lobster. "Did I ask for your opinion, genius? Step back before you become part of this problem and miss your precious flight." The businessman retreated quickly, unwilling to sacrifice his own comfort for abstract justice. Elena noted his cowardice without judgment. Not everyone could afford heroism in America's institutional racism battlefield. 3 additional TSA agents arrived at Bradley's summons, their expressions uncomfortable with his obvious overreach and the growing crowd's attention. Agent Rosa Lopez, a Latina with 7 years on the job, checked her body camera carefully, ensuring it was recording. Agent Tyrone Hayes, black and an ex-Marine with 5 years, exchanged worried glances with the rookie, Agent Kaylan Nguyen, Vietnamese-American. "What's the situation here, Lead Harlan?" Lopez asked professionally, trying to diffuse the escalating tension. "Suspicious documents that scream forgery, possible identity theft. She claims to work for the NSA." Bradley's voice dripped with theatrical sarcasm as he waved Elena's legitimate paperwork like evidence in a criminal trial. Hayes examined the documents briefly with trained eyes. "These look completely authentic to me, Lead. The seals are correct. The formatting matches government standards. The paper quality indicates official printing." "I'm the supervisor here," Bradley snapped, cutting off his colleague's reasonable assessment. "I make the final determinations about suspicious activity and security threats." The growing crowd murmured disapproval like distant thunder. An elderly white woman clutched her husband's arm tightly. "Harold, this isn't right. That poor woman hasn't done anything wrong. This is pure harassment." Bradley's face reddened further as public opinion shifted decisively against him. Cornered animals become exponentially more dangerous. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step aside for comprehensive additional screening." "Additional screening for what specific purpose?" Elena's question carried military authority that made Bradley flinch involuntarily like a scolded child. "Because I said so. That's all the legal reason I need," he growled, grabbing Elena's elbow roughly and attempting to steer her toward a private screening area away from the witness cameras. Elena didn't resist physically, but her military bearing remained perfectly intact. "Officer, you're violating established TSA protocol. I haven't triggered any legitimate security concerns that would justify additional screening procedures." "Don't tell me how to do my job." Bradley's professional composure cracked completely like breaking glass. "You people always think you know better than law enforcement officers." The phrase "you people" hung in the recycled airport air like toxic poison gas. Passengers gasped audibly in shocked recognition. Phone cameras focused tighter on Bradley's sweating face. The mask of professional authority slipped completely, revealing naked racism underneath. A young black mother instinctively covered her daughter's ears protectively. A Hispanic businessman shook his head in disgusted recognition of familiar prejudice. An Asian college student live-streamed the encounter on social media with trembling hands. What exactly do you mean by "you people," Officer Harlan? Elena's question forced Bradley to confront his own prejudice in full public view. Bradley realized his verbal mistake but doubled down rather than retreat strategically. People who think rules don't apply to them. People who cry racism every time they get caught breaking federal law. What specific law have I broken? Elena's military precision dissected his flimsy argument with surgical accuracy, leaving no room for evasion. Bradley's eyes darted around desperately, searching for justification that didn't exist. Suspicious behavior patterns, fraudulent government documents, failure to cooperate with federal security personnel. None of those allegations are factually accurate. Elena's voice carried the unshakable authority of someone who had briefed Pentagon generals and challenged Joint Chief strategies. You're harassing me based solely on my race, not legitimate security concerns. The direct accusation hit Bradley like a physical slap across his privileged face. Public racism accusations threatened his career, his authority, his carefully constructed self-image as a professional law enforcement officer. That's it! He exploded with uncontrolled rage, spittle flying from his twisted mouth. You're under citizen's arrest for threatening a federal officer and inciting public disturbance. The completely absurd charges drew nervous laughter from the assembled crowd. Agent Lopez stepped forward, clearly uncomfortable with Bradley's dangerous escalation. Lead, maybe we should contact your supervisor. Shut up. Lopez, I'm handling this situation according to proper protocol, Bradley barked, his authority dissolving as his colleagues visibly distanced themselves from his obvious misconduct. Elena remained perfectly motionless, hands clearly visible, posture completely non-threatening. Military survival training had taught her tactics for dealing with unstable authority figures. Stay calm. Document everything. Wait for proper backup. The confrontation reached critical mass as Bradley's hatred collided with Elena's unshakable composure. Neither participant realized how completely the power dynamic was about to reverse in the next 60 seconds. Bradley's hands shook with uncontrolled rage as he grabbed Elena's satchel with both fists, his knuckles white with tension. I'm confiscating this until we determine what criminal contraband you're hiding inside. The premium leather handle tore under his violent grip. Classified documents became visible through the partially opened zipper. Officer Harlan, that satchel contains classified materials protected under federal law. Elena's voice carried steel beneath silk, each word precisely measured. You lack proper security clearance to examine those contents without violating national security protocols. Classified materials? Bradley's laughter echoed across Gate C-17 like breaking glass, his sanity fraying visibly. Lady, I've seen better fake IDs at freshman college parties. This whole elaborate act is absolutely pathetic. He dumped the satchel contents across Gate C-17's dirty floor with vindictive satisfaction, watching papers scatter like fallen autumn leaves. Top-secret NSA intelligence reports mixed with cyber threat assessments, satellite photographs of Chinese military, installations landed beside coffee-stained napkins and discarded gum wrappers. Passengers gasped audibly at the obvious government. Seals and bold classification markings. Agent Lopez recognized legitimate intelligence materials immediately, her eyes widening with professional alarm. Lead, stop this immediately. Those documents appear genuinely classified. Shut your traitorous mouth, Lopez. Bradley screamed, his face turning deep purple with unhinged fury. These are obviously fake props for some elaborate welfare scam designed to defraud hardworking taxpayers. Elena knelt carefully on the dirty terminal floor, gathering scattered papers that could reshape international policy and prevent military conflicts. Her hands remained perfectly steady despite the internal turmoil burning in her chest. Each document represented months of intelligence gathering and analysis that could save American lives overseas. Bradley kicked a cyber threat assessment report viciously, grinding his boot heel directly into the presidential seal with deliberate disrespect. Look at this cheap Hollywood garbage. You probably downloaded these fancy templates from some terrorist website. Those documents are completely authentic. Agent Hayes whispered urgently to Lopez, sweat beading on his forehead. The paper quality, the specialized printing, the classification formatting, that's genuine government documentation. Bradley overheard the whispered conversation and whirled on both agents like a rabid animal. Are you questioning my supervisory authority? Maybe you're both part of this elaborate terrorist conspiracy. The paranoid accusation sent both experienced agents stepping backward in alarm. Bradley's mental state deteriorated rapidly under mounting public pressure and his own delusional racist fantasies. Sweat poured down his reddened face despite the terminal's aggressive air conditioning. Elena continued collecting sensitive papers with military precision, her movements controlled and purposeful. Her father's Vietnam service badge caught the bright morning sunlight streaming through the terminal windows, a tangible reminder of maintaining dignity under hostile fire. "Stand up immediately," Bradley ordered harshly, positioning himself uncomfortably close to Elena's kneeling form. "I said stand up when your superior is addressing you directly." His aggressive proximity violated every established professional protocol and personal boundary. Elena rose gracefully from the floor, maintaining a safe 2 arms length distance for personal protection. Her extensive military training recognized dangerous escalation patterns in Bradley's increasingly unstable body language. "Officer Harlan, I'm formally requesting immediate supervisor intervention." Elena's diplomatic tone cut through Bradley's mounting hysteria like a sharpened blade. "Your conduct violates multiple federal civil rights, statutes, and TSA regulations." "I am the supervisor!" Bradley shrieked hysterically, spittle flying from his twisted mouth in invisible droplets. "And I'm ordering a comprehensive strip search for hidden weapons and terrorist contraband." The assembled crowd erupted in shocked murmurs and gasps of disbelief. Strip searches required probable cause, same-gender officers, and private screening facilities. Bradley's outrageous demand violated every established protocol while revealing his sadistic psychological intentions. "That's completely inappropriate and legally prohibited," Agent Lopez protested loudly, her voice carrying across the terminal. "Lead, you need to step back and regain your composure immediately." Bradley completely ignored his colleague's reasonable advice, focusing entirely on publicly humiliating Elena before the growing audience of shocked witnesses. "Empty your pockets completely. Remove all jewelry immediately. Take off that stolen military pin. I will not comply with illegal search demands that violate constitutional protections." Elena's refusal carried quiet authority that made Bradley's left eye twitch violently with frustrated rage. His radio crackled with an urgent incoming transmission from airport operations. "Supervisor Harlan, federal agents are requesting immediate access to Gate C-17. Please respond to this priority communication." Bradley keyed his radio with visibly trembling fingers, his voice cracking under stress. "Negative on federal access. I'm actively handling a major security threat. No outside interference required or authorized." The radio transmission continued with increased urgency. "Sir, these federal agents specifically requested access to escort an NSA passenger. Please confirm the current passenger status immediately." Bradley's existing paranoia exploded into full-blown conspiracy theory delusions. "It's all connected. She's obviously some sophisticated terrorist operative with federal government accomplices planted throughout the system." He reached aggressively for Elena's military blazer, attempting to tear off her father's precious service badge by brute force. "I'm confiscating this fake military insignia as evidence of stolen valor and federal impersonation." Elena stepped backward protectively, shielding her father's honored memory from Bradley's defiling touch. "Officer, you're committing assault and violating numerous federal regulations governing civilian treatment." "You don't give orders to me." Bradley lunged forward aggressively, grabbing Elena's shoulder with bruising force. "I'm placing you under citizen's arrest for impersonating military personnel and threatening federal officers." Agent Hayes finally intervened physically, grasping Bradley's wrist firmly to prevent further assault. "Lead, stop this behavior right now. You're way over every possible line." Bradley shoved his experienced colleague backward violently, sending him stumbling into nearby seats. "Don't touch me. You're all part of this massive conspiracy against American homeland security." The violent confrontation drew immediate airport police attention from across the terminal. 3 uniformed officers approached cautiously, uncertain whether to support TSA authority or intervene against obvious abuse of power. Their professional confusion created jurisdictional chaos that Bradley exploited expertly. "Airport police, arrest this dangerous terrorist immediately." Bradley pointed at Elena dramatically, his fingers shaking with uncontrolled rage. "She's carrying sophisticated fake government documents and directly threatening federal security officers. Officer Jenna Ruiz, a Latina with 10 years as a Chicago Police Department veteran, examined the scattered intelligence reports with professional skepticism and growing concern. The classification markings, specialized paper quality, and official government seals appeared completely legitimate to her trained law enforcement eyes. "Ma'am, can you provide additional identification for verification?" Officer Ruiz asked Elena respectfully, completely ignoring Bradley's hysterical demands and accusations. Elena produced her Common Access Card, CAC, NSA Access Badge, and official government travel orders with calm efficiency. Each document reinforced her legitimate authority while highlighting Bradley's obvious professional misconduct. Bradley snatched the CAC from Officer Ruiz's hands roughly. "This is obviously sophisticated forgery. Look at the suspiciously poor photograph quality." He attempted to bend the military identification card forcefully, testing its structural durability. Military ID cards resisted his destructive efforts due to specialized government construction materials. Bradley's complete ignorance about authentic military credentials became embarrassingly obvious to everyone watching. "Sir, that appears to be completely legitimate military identification," Officer Ruiz observed diplomatically, trying to defuse the escalating situation. "You're all professionally incompetent," Bradley screamed at everyone within earshot, his voice echoing off the terminal glass. "Can't any of you recognize this elaborate criminal fraud?" His radio crackled again with mounting urgency from Airport Operations Control. "All available units, federal agents, are now at the main security checkpoint, requesting immediate escort to Gate C-17. Please respond to this priority directive." Bradley smashed his radio violently against the hard terminal floor, silencing the incoming transmission completely. "No federal interference. I'm handling this critical situation according to established protocol." The deliberately destroyed radio represented Bradley's complete psychological break from reality and professional authority. His horrified colleagues exchanged deeply worried glances, recognizing dangerous mental instability in their supervisor's deteriorating behavior. Elena maintained perfect military composure despite the escalating chaos swirling around her like a violent storm. Extensive combat training had prepared her for hostile enemy environments, but civilian airport discrimination felt more personally violating than foreign combat zones. "Ma'am, are you all right?" a genuinely concerned elderly passenger asked quietly, approaching with visible worry. "Should someone call 911 for emergency assistance?" Before Elena could respond appropriately, Bradley overheard the innocent question and exploded with fresh rage. "She's perfectly fine. Mind your own business before I have you arrested for interfering with federal investigations." The direct threat against innocent bystanders demonstrated Bradley's complete abandonment of professional restraint and basic human decency. His authority complex transformed rapidly into paranoid delusions of conspiracy and systematic persecution. Multiple airport security cameras captured every moment from different strategic angles. Body camera footage recorded Bradley's violations and Elena's dignified responses in high definition. Social media posts spread the confrontation globally within minutes. With Sark Airport racism trending rapidly across platforms, Bradley planted himself directly in front of Elena aggressively, violating personal space with obvious intimidation tactics. "I'm conducting an official field interview about your suspicious activities and possible terrorist connections to foreign enemies. Officer Harlan, you lack probable cause for any investigation," Elena responded with military legal precision. "You're violating my constitutional rights under the color of federal authority." The precise legal language infuriated Bradley beyond rational thought. "Don't quote constitutional law to me. I am the law within this airport facility." His megalomania reached dangerous psychological peaks as 3 FBI agents approached Gate C-17 with purposeful, measured strides. Bradley remained completely oblivious to the approaching federal authority that would shatter his racist power fantasy within 60 seconds. The terminal's ambient noise suddenly shifted as heavy footsteps echoed across the polished floors. 3 figures in dark suits moved through the crowd with unmistakable federal authority, their synchronized stride cutting through the morning chaos like a knife through butter. Bradley noticed the approaching agents and straightened his posture triumphantly. Finally, real law enforcement to handle this terrorist situation. He waved his arms dramatically, directing their attention toward Elena. Officers, I've apprehended a dangerous suspect with forged government documents. The lead agent, Special Agent Carla Ruiz, 39, ex-Army Criminal Investigation Division, CID, daughter of a Tuskegee airman, reached Gate C-17 with her colleagues flanking her professionally. Her sharp eyes scanned the scattered classified documents, Bradley's aggressive stance, and Elena's composed dignity in a single sweeping assessment. Federal Bureau of Investigation, Agent Ruiz announced clearly, displaying her credentials for the assembled crowd. We're here for our scheduled escort assignment. Bradley's confidence swelled like a balloon ready to burst. Excellent timing. This woman has been impersonating military personnel and threatening federal officers. I recommend immediate arrest for terrorism-related charges. Agent Ruiz stepped past Bradley completely, ignoring his existence as if he were invisible furniture. Her gaze locked onto Elena with unmistakable recognition and something Bradley didn't expect: profound respect. Colonel Thompson, Agent Ruiz's voice carried military formality as she came to attention. We've been waiting for you. Ma'am. The words hit Bradley like a physical slap. His mouth dropped open mid-sentence, revealing his shocked confusion to every recording phone camera. The triumphant expression melted from his face like ice in summer heat. Agent Ruiz raised her right hand in a perfect military salute, holding the position with unwavering precision. Her 2 colleagues immediately followed suit, their synchronized movement creating a moment of stunning reverence that silenced the entire terminal. The 3 FBI agents stood frozen in respectful salute while Bradley's world collapsed around him like a house of cards. Passengers gasped audibly, phones captured every angle, and social media exploded with the dramatic power reversal. Ma'am, we apologize for any delay in our arrival, Agent Ruiz continued, maintaining her salute. NSA operations sent us to escort you to your classified briefing with the Secretary of Defense. Bradley's face cycled through emotions like a broken traffic light. Confusion, disbelief, horror, and dawning realization of his catastrophic mistake. The woman he'd been humiliating commanded more respect than his entire career. At ease, agents, Elena responded with natural military authority, returning their salute briefly. Thank you for your punctuality despite the complications. Agent Ruiz lowered her hand and surveyed the chaos around Gate C-17 with professional assessment. Scattered classified documents, hostile TSA supervisor, crowd of witnesses, multiple phone recordings. The situation required immediate federal intervention. Colonel, are these your classified materials? Agent Ruiz gestured toward the scattered NSA reports covering the dirty floor like fallen snow. Yes, Agent Ruiz. They were forcibly removed from my satchel during an unlawful search. Elena's response carried steel wrapped in diplomatic silk, each word precisely chosen for maximum legal impact. Bradley finally found his voice, though it cracked with desperate panic. Wait, there's been some misunderstanding. I was just following standard security protocols for suspicious passengers. Agent Ruiz turned toward Bradley for the first time, her gaze cold enough to freeze plasma. And you are? TSA Lead Officer Bradley Harlan. Ma'am, I was conducting a routine security verification when you assaulted a decorated war hero and scattered classified intelligence across a public terminal, Agent Ruiz interrupted, her voice carrying the authority of federal law enforcement. Bradley's face drained of color as the full scope of his situation became crystal clear. I didn't know she was in the military. Her documents looked suspicious. Anyone could have faked those credentials. Anyone except someone with Colonel Thompson's security clearance and NSA authorization, Agent Ruiz replied icily. which you would have verified through proper channels instead of conducting an illegal search. The crowd's murmur grew louder as passengers realized they'd witnessed something extraordinary. A decorated military officer being saluted by FBI agents while a racist TSA supervisor faced federal consequences for his abuse of power. Agent Ruiz, "We need to collect this classified material immediately," one of her colleagues observed, kneeling to gather the scattered documents with appropriate security protocols. Agreed. Gloves and evidence bags. Chain of custody documentation. Agent Ruiz's professional. Efficiency contrasted sharply with Bradley's. Earlier chaos and incompetence. Bradley watched his authority evaporate, like morning mist as federal agents took control of the situation. His colleagues distanced themselves physically and professionally, their body language screaming denials of association with his misconduct. "Ma'am, your NSA briefing is scheduled in 90 minutes, Agent Ruiz informed Elena respectfully. "We have a secured vehicle standing by for immediate transport." "Thank you, Agent Ruiz. I appreciate the Bureau's assistance in this matter." Elena's gracious response demonstrated the class and dignity that Bradley's racism couldn't break. Agent Lopez approached cautiously, her body camera still recording. "Agent Ruiz, I want to clarify that not all TSA personnel supported Lead Harlan's actions. Several of us objected to his conduct." "Noted. For the record, Agent Lopez, we'll need your incident report and body camera footage for our civil rights investigation." Agent Ruiz's tone remained professional, but slightly warmer toward the cooperative TSA agent. Bradley's panic reached fever pitch as he realized federal agents were building a case against him. "This is all a huge misunderstanding. I was protecting airport security. Someone should commend my vigilance." "Someone will evaluate your actions thoroughly," Agent Ruiz replied with ominous finality. In federal court, the power dynamic had reversed completely. Bradley's racist authority lay in ruins, while Elena's dignity and service record shone brighter under FBI recognition. Justice prepared to balance the scales with overwhelming force. Passengers began applauding spontaneously, their phones capturing Elena's vindication and Bradley's impending downfall. The truth revealed itself with devastating clarity. Honor triumphed over hatred every single time. Bradley's legs trembled visibly as the full weight of his catastrophic mistake crashed down like an avalanche. His voice cracked with desperate panic as he stammered pathetic excuses to anyone who might listen. I was just following standard protocols. There's been a terrible misunderstanding." Sweat poured down his reddened face despite the terminal's air conditioning. The documents looked suspicious. Anyone could have made that same mistake. Agent Ruiz fixed Bradley with a stare that could melt steel. "Supervisor Harlan, you violated multiple federal statutes, including civil rights violations, assault on military personnel, and mishandling of classified materials." "Civil rights violations?" Bradley's voice rose to a panicked squeak. "I never mentioned race, and this had nothing to do with her being black." The crowd erupted in disgusted laughter at his transparent denial. Dozens of phone recordings had captured every racist word and gesture. Social media posts already spreading globally told a very different story than Bradley's desperate revisionist history. "Ma'am, we have 52 previous complaints against Lead Harlan in TSA files," Agent Lopez revealed quietly to Agent Ruiz. "All involving passengers of color. Management buried most of them in bureaucratic procedures." Bradley's face turned ash gray as his pattern of discrimination became public knowledge. "Those complaints were all investigated and dismissed. I was cleared of any wrongdoing." "Buried and cleared are two very different things," Agent Ruiz observed coldly. "We'll be reviewing every single case with federal oversight." Airport manager Patricia Lee finally arrived at Gate C-17, her high heels clicking frantically across the terminal floor. She'd been hiding in her office until the situation became too public to ignore. "Agent Ruiz, I'm Patricia Lee, Terminal Operations Manager. TSA headquarters sent me to assess this regrettable incident." Her carefully practiced corporate speak fooled nobody present. "Ms. Lee, your employee assaulted a decorated military officer and compromised classified national security materials," Agent Ruiz stated bluntly. "Where were you during this 40-minute confrontation?" Lee's rehearsed explanations crumbled under federal scrutiny. I was handling other urgent matters. Lead Harlan acted without authorization or approval from management. 52 complaints, and you never noticed a pattern. Agent Ruiz's skepticism cut through Lee's deflections like acid through paper. Bradley realized his supervisors were abandoning him completely. Patricia, you know I've always been a dedicated employee. Tell them about my commendations and performance reviews. Lee stepped backward, distancing herself physically from Bradley's contaminated presence. Lead Harlan's actions don't reflect TSA values or training standards. We're launching an immediate internal investigation. Too late for internal investigations, Agent Ruiz replied firmly. This is now a federal case under FBI jurisdiction. She produced Miranda rights cards and began reading Bradley his constitutional protections. Bradley Harlan, you're under arrest for violation of civil rights under color of authority, assault, and interference with classified materials. Bradley's knees buckled as handcuffs clicked around his wrists with metallic finality. This is insane. I was doing my job. You can't arrest me for following security procedures. You followed no legitimate procedures, Agent Ruiz corrected him. You conducted an illegal search, destroyed government property, and assaulted a military officer based solely on racial prejudice. Passengers applauded loudly as Bradley was escorted away in federal custody. Children pointed excitedly while their parents explained the difference between right and wrong, justice and injustice. Lead Harlan's badge and credentials are suspended immediately pending investigation outcome, Lee announced desperately, trying to salvage TSA's reputation. Agent Lopez removed Bradley's TSA badge and radio equipment officially. Sir, you're relieved of duty effective immediately. Please surrender all government property. Bradley's authority symbols, badge, radio, clipboard, represented 8 years of abusing power over vulnerable people. Their removal felt like losing his identity completely. Elena watched Bradley's arrest with quiet satisfaction, but no gloating. Military honor didn't celebrate fallen enemies, even those who deserved their fate. Colonel Thompson, we sincerely apologize for this disgraceful treatment, Lee groveled desperately. TSA will conduct comprehensive bias training and policy reforms immediately. Actions speak louder than corporate apologies, Elena responded diplomatically. 52 buried complaints suggest systemic problems requiring federal oversight. Agent Ruiz escorted Bradley toward the security checkpoint while her colleagues secured the classified documents properly. Ma'am, our vehicle is ready for NSA transport whenever you're prepared. Bradley's muffled protests faded as he disappeared into federal custody. 8 years of institutional racism ended in handcuffs and national humiliation broadcast across social media platforms. The crowd began dispersing, but phones continued recording the aftermath. Elena's dignity throughout the ordeal transformed her into an instant symbol of grace under pressure. Agent Ruiz, I'm ready to proceed to my briefing, Elena announced calmly, adjusting her father's military badge that Bradley had tried to steal. Justice moved swiftly when federal law enforcement witnessed discrimination firsthand. Bradley's racist career ended exactly as it should, in complete disgrace and legal consequences. The immediate accountability felt satisfying, but deeper institutional changes would require sustained pressure and federal oversight to prevent future Bradley Harlans from abusing their authority. Within 6 hours of Bradley's arrest, CNN breaking news alerts flashed across millions of screens nationwide. TSA supervisor arrested for assaulting decorated NSA colonel at O'Hare. FBI agents salute hero in dramatic turnaround. The story spread like wildfire through every major news network. Anderson Cooper opened his evening broadcast with Elena's story. Tonight we examine how institutional racism nearly prevented an NSA intelligence briefing that could affect national security. Our investigation reveals a disturbing pattern of discrimination buried by TSA bureaucracy. The network displayed Bradley's mugshot alongside Elena's military service photos. Bronze Star recipient, Purple Heart from Afghanistan combat operations. The visual contrast spoke volumes about character and patriotism. Complaints against Bradley Harlan were filed over 8 years, Cooper continued. his voice carrying controlled outrage. Not one resulted in disciplinary action. Tonight we speak with victims who tried to hold the TSA accountable. Maria Gonzalez, a Latina businesswoman, appeared via satellite from Phoenix. He made me strip down to my underwear in 2019, claiming my rosary was suspicious. When I complained, TSA said the search was routine procedure. Similar testimonies poured in from across the country. Dr. James Washington, a black cardiologist from Chicago, Fatima Al-Hassan, a Muslim engineer from Detroit. Each story followed identical patterns, racial profiling disguised as security protocols. The FBI Civil Rights Division launched Operation Gatekeeper Justice within 48 hours. Special Agent Rebecca Carter led a task force reviewing Bradley's entire career with forensic precision. We're examining every complaint, every incident report, every body camera malfunction during Harlan's shifts, Agent Carter explained to reporters. This investigation will determine if criminal conspiracy extends beyond one rogue agent. TSA headquarters scrambled into damage control mode. Director Michael Stevens faced congressional questioning within 72 hours of Bradley's arrest. Director Stevens, how did 52 complaints against one supervisor get buried? Congresswoman Alexandria Ramirez demanded during the House oversight hearing. Stevens squirmed visibly under camera lights. We are reviewing our complaint processing procedures. This appears to be an isolated incident involving poor supervision and documentation failures. Isolated? Ramirez produced a thick folder. We've identified similar patterns at 12 other airports. Your agency has a systemic racism problem. Meanwhile, Bradley sat in federal detention, his high-priced attorney struggling against overwhelming evidence. Lawrence Whitfield III, son of privilege and Harvard Law graduate, realized this case was unwinnable. Bradley, we have 52 witnesses, hundreds of hours of video evidence, and federal agents who witnessed your assault, Whitfield explained grimly. The prosecution is offering 15 years. I recommend accepting their plea agreement. Bradley's world continued collapsing systematically. His wife filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences and public humiliation. His suburban home went into foreclosure as legal fees mounted. Former friends avoided his phone calls. This is all her fault, Bradley ranted to his attorney. That woman destroyed my life with her fake victim act. Whitfield shook his head in disgust. Bradley, Colonel Thompson served our country for 25 years while you harassed innocent people. Take responsibility for your actions. The NSA briefing Bradley nearly prevented proved crucial to national security. Elena's intelligence analysis helped prevent a cyber attack on U.S. naval vessels in the South China Sea. Her expertise saved American lives while Bradley rotted in federal detention. General Patricia Hayes, chair of the Joint Chiefs, issued a public statement. Colonel Thompson exemplifies military excellence and dignified service. The discrimination she faced reflects poorly on our nation's treatment of heroes. 3 months later, Bradley's federal trial began in Chicago. Federal Judge Maria Santos presided over proceedings that captivated national attention. Mr. Harlan, you stand accused of violating civil rights under color of authority, assault on military personnel, and obstruction of national security operations, Judge Santos announced. How do you plead? Not guilty, Your Honor, Bradley whispered, his voice barely audible. The prosecution presented devastating evidence. Body camera footage showed Bradley's racist tirades. Phone videos captured his assault on Elena. TSA colleagues testified about his discriminatory patterns. Agent Lopez took the witness stand reluctantly. Lead Harlan frequently targeted minority passengers for additional screening. When we objected, he threatened our job security. Bradley's defense crumbled under documentary evidence. Video testimony from 52 victims created an overwhelming pattern of racial discrimination spanning 8 years. Dr. Sarah Muhammad, a psychology expert, testified about institutional racism's psychological impact. Victims experienced trauma, anxiety, and loss of faith in American justice systems. Mr. Harlan's actions damaged our social fabric. The prosecution played airport security footage showing Bradley's escalating aggression toward Elena. The jury watched in horror as he kicked classified documents and threatened a decorated war hero. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, U.S. Attorney David Carter addressed the court. Bradley Harlan abused federal authority to terrorize citizens based on racial prejudice. This case demands accountability and justice. Bradley's attorney attempted damage control. My client made mistakes under pressure. He deserves rehabilitation, not destruction. The jury deliberated for 37 minutes, barely enough time to elect a foreman and review evidence. Their quick decision signaled Bradley's complete legal defeat. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" Judge Santos inquired. "Yes, Your Honor." "We find the defendant guilty on all counts." Bradley collapsed into his chair as reality crashed down. His 8-year reign of institutional terror ended with federal conviction and public disgrace. Judge Santos delivered sentencing 2 weeks later. "Mr. Harlan, you violated the constitutional rights of 52 citizens. Your abuse of authority demands maximum penalties. The court sentences you to 7 years federal imprisonment, followed by 3 years supervised probation. You're permanently barred from federal employment and required to pay $400,000 in civil penalties." Bradley's face went ash white as his future evaporated completely. 7 years in federal prison, financial ruin, permanent disgrace. Justice served him exactly what he deserved. The courtroom erupted in applause from Bradley's victims and their families. Elena sat quietly in the gallery, her dignity intact throughout the proceedings. TSA underwent comprehensive reforms following Bradley's conviction. New bias training, complaint reporting systems, and federal oversight prevented future discrimination patterns. Operation Gatekeeper Justice identified systemic problems requiring immediate correction. Agent Carter announced, "We've terminated 14 employees and restructured complaint procedures nationwide." Congressional legislation strengthened civil rights protections for travelers. The Elena Thompson Airport Dignity Act mandated bias training, complaint transparency, and victim compensation procedures. Bradley's conviction sent shockwaves through federal law enforcement. Officers across the country realized that racial discrimination carried serious consequences in the digital age. 6 months after sentencing, Bradley began his federal prison term at FCI Pekin. His orange jumpsuit replaced the TSA uniform that once symbolized his authority over innocent people. Elena's heroic service continued, inspiring young people nationwide. Military recruitment among minorities increased significantly, following her dignified example under pressure. Justice moved slowly sometimes, but Bradley Harlan discovered that accountability always arrived eventually. His racist career ended exactly where it belonged, behind federal prison bars. 6 months after Bradley Harlan's conviction, Colonel Elena Thompson sat in her NSA office reviewing intelligence reports that had prevented 3 cyber attacks worldwide. Sunlight streamed through reinforced windows overlooking the Potomac River, illuminating commendations covering her walls like badges of honor. Her son Jamal, now a junior at Annapolis, video called from his dorm room. "Mom, my professor used your airport incident as a case study in leadership under pressure. You're literally in our textbook now." Elena smiled warmly at her son's pride. "Jamal, that day taught me something important. Dignity isn't what others give you. It's what you refuse to surrender." The NSA briefing Bradley tried to prevent led to Operation Silent Shield, a classified mission that neutralized hacker cells across 4 countries. Elena's intelligence analysis saved hundreds of American lives while Bradley rotted in federal prison. Her office display case held new awards: Congressional Gold Medal for Distinguished Service, Presidential Medal of Freedom, and dozens of letters from grateful military families. The woman Bradley called an entitlement case now advised presidents on national security matters. Meanwhile, FCI Pekin served Bradley his daily reality check: orange jumpsuit, concrete walls, steel bars. The federal prison system treated him like every other convicted criminal, regardless of his former authority. His cellmate, Marcus Thompson, had been wrongly convicted of robbery 20 years ago before DNA evidence freed him. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. A black man teaching a racist about justice and redemption. Bradley's family abandoned him completely. His ex-wife remarried a kind veterinarian who treated their children with the respect Bradley never showed. His former TSA colleagues avoided mentioning his name, ashamed of their past association. The Elena Thompson Airport Dignity Act revolutionized federal security protocols nationwide. Bias training became mandatory quarterly. Complaint procedures gained transparency, and victim compensation programs provided real accountability. TSA discrimination complaints dropped 82% following Bradley's conviction and systematic reforms. Airport security respected all passengers equally. Knowing federal oversight monitored every interaction through enhanced surveillance and reporting systems. Elena traveled frequently now, speaking at military academies, corporate conferences, and civil rights organizations. Her message resonated across demographics. Service to our country comes in many forms and faces, but dignity should never depend on uniform or skin color. At Howard University's commencement ceremony, Elena delivered the keynote address to 3,000 graduates and their families. Her words carried weight earned through fire and vindicated by justice. Young people, you'll face Bradley Harlans throughout your careers, people who judge your worth by appearance rather than character. Remember this, their prejudice reveals their weakness, not yours. Bradley's former victims found closure through his conviction and systemic changes. Dr. James Washington, the cardiologist Bradley humiliated, now chaired TSA's Civil Rights Advisory Board. Maria Gonzalez started a nonprofit supporting discrimination victims. The Bradley Harlan case transformed into required curriculum at law schools, police academies, and federal training centers. His racist downfall taught future officers about constitutional limits and professional consequences. Elena maintained her military bearing while embracing her role as a symbol of grace under pressure. She never gloated about Bradley's fate, understanding that true victory came through positive change, not revenge. Her office received hundreds of letters weekly from young people inspired by her example. A particularly moving note came from a black teenage girl in Mississippi. "Colonel Thompson, your strength helps me believe I can serve our country proudly. Every act of courage, no matter how small, creates ripples that can change the world. When you see injustice, you have a choice. Be a bystander or be the change. Choose courage. Choose justice. Choose to speak up. Share this story if you believe dignity and respect should never depend on skin color or background. Follow for more inspiring stories of justice overcoming prejudice and ordinary people creating extraordinary change. Comment below. Tell us about a time you witnessed discrimination or stood up for someone being treated unfairly. Your story matters. Use Embodied Dignity for All to share your own experiences and inspire others to take action. Subscribe for weekly stories that prove courage can defeat hatred every single time. Remember, one person's courage can change an entire system. Your voice matters. Your actions count. Justice waits for heroes willing to stand up. The choice is yours. What will you choose?